I'm Denise, 32. Last Sunday at our family dinner, my parents slid a thick envelope across the table to my brother and turned to me with a smile that cut, "You're a failure." I stayed silent. What I did next changed everything. The silverware clinked in rhythm with my heartbeat. My brother's grin stretched ear to ear as he opened the envelope. Blue frosting on a congratulations cake shone under the chandelier, and the smell of roasted turkey mixed with expensive perfume. I sat at the far end of the table, my chair a little shaky on the old floorboards, and tried to make myself small. That night still burns in my memory, not for the money, but for what came after. Before I tell you, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever been sidelined by your own family, hit subscribe. You'll want to see how this ends. Earlier that day, my mom had called me independent, a word she always used like a compliment, but felt more like a dismissal. She'd said it when she forgot my birthday too. Now she was repeating it in front of everyone. I kept my hands folded on my lap, staring at the condensation on my untouched glass of water. My dad raised his glass. "To our son's future," he said. The envelope ripped open a cashier's check for $150,000. Everyone clapped forks, tapping plates like applause. My mother turned to me, voice sweet but sharp. "Denise, you're so strong on your own. You'll figure things out." Laughter scattered like silver beads rolling off the table. She leaned closer, thinking the clatter of plates hid her words. "You're a failure," she whispered, but loud enough for the aunt across from us to pause mid-bite. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. For a heartbeat, the room felt airless. I forced a small smile at my brother and reached for my napkin, folding it carefully. No one noticed. That silence was the first brick in something bigger. The diamond bracelet on my mother's wrist caught the light as she refilled his wine. My brother's expensive watch ticked loudly beside his plate. All of it imprinted itself on me like a photograph I'd look at later when things had changed. I didn't argue. I just watched the scene unfold as if I'd slipped behind glass. My father poured more wine into my brother's glass, his face glowing with pride. Someone made a toast about new beginnings, and everyone laughed. I took a slow sip of water, tasting only metal, and placed the glass down without a sound. My mother kept her eyes on my brother as if I'd vanished from the table. The cake was cut, slices passed around me without a glance. My aunt asked if I was still doing those little design projects, the way people talk about a hobby, not a career. I nodded and smiled, though my stomach had tightened into a knot. No one asked about my work, my life, my plans. All their attention stuck to him like moths to a porch light. I caught my brother glancing at me, a flicker of discomfort in his eyes before he looked away. Even he seemed unsure about the spectacle. My mom patted his hand, whispering something I couldn't hear over the clatter of forks. The word independent floated across the table again, soft but heavy. I folded my napkin, slowly tracing the embroidery with my thumb. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, a reminder about a small project deadline, but I didn't reach for it. My head felt full of static, each laugh at the table like a tiny pinprick. In that moment, I realized how invisible I'd become to the people who raised me, but I didn't explode, didn't defend myself, didn't beg for recognition. I sat up straight, smoothed my hair, and let the moment pass without a sound. Inside, though, something shifted, not a flare of rage, but a quiet snap like a thread finally breaking. I looked at the bracelet on my mother's wrist, catching the chandelier light, and at my brother's watch, ticking louder than the conversation. Small details, but they etched themselves into me. As the evening wound down and plates were cleared, my father clapped my brother's back. "This is just the beginning for you," he said. No one looked my way. I stood, pushed my chair in gently, and slipped on my coat. "Thanks for dinner," I said softly. No one responded. The door closed behind me with a muted click, sealing the room and all its noise on the other side. Weeks turned into months, and the echo of that dinner stayed with me like a faint bruise. My phone buzzed with family group texts, photos of brunches, jokes I wasn't tagged in, but I let each one slide away unread. The silence on my end felt strange at first, like wearing a new pair of shoes. Then it started to fit. My brother texted once, "You good?" I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back, "Congrats on the house." He sent a thumbs up emoji and nothing more. That was the full extent of our brotherly bonding. My parents left a single voicemail a month later, my dad's voice casual. "We know you're busy, Denise. You don't need our help anyway." Same tone, same dismissal. At night, my tiny apartment hummed with the sound of the old fridge. I sat at my desk under the glow of a thrift store lamp, hands cramped from sketching logos. I took every gig I could find: menus for cafes, flyers for local bands, Instagram graphics for small shops. My phone stayed silent from home, but buzzed with client emails. I'd stopped expecting recognition. Instead, I poured my hours into work with a manic steadiness that felt less like ambition and more like survival. Some nights I forgot to eat until dawn. Other nights I fell asleep with my laptop still open on my knees. Outside my window, the city pulsed neon and rain, but inside it was just me and the projects stacking up. One quiet afternoon, scrolling through property listings I couldn't afford, I caught myself imagining a future where I wasn't the failure. I paused on a photo of a small plot of land trees, a creek nothing built yet, and saved it without thinking. It felt like putting a pin in a dream. My phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't family. It was Marcus, the cafe owner whose first logo I'd designed years ago. "I loved your work," his message read. "I'm opening a new location. Would you handle the branding budget, $20K?" My heart thudded. $20,000 was more than I'd made in months combined. Without overthinking, I typed back, "Yes," and hit send. Something inside me shifted like a window cracking open. That project became a turning point. Days blurred into nights as I poured myself into it, sketching between sips of cold coffee, refining color palettes until my eyes burned. But instead of exhaustion, I felt a quiet satisfaction. Marcus called late one evening after I sent the final files. "This is it," he said. "Exactly what I wanted." For once, someone valued what I created without discounting it as a hobby. Word spread. Marcus mentioned my name to another small business and then another. Within months, I had more work than I could handle. I raised my rates cautiously at first, then with confidence. Clients kept saying yes. My inbox shifted from bargain hunters to serious owners wanting a full rebrand. Slowly, my bank account stopped hovering near empty. I began paying rent without checking my balance twice. Groceries became something I bought without mental math. I upgraded my secondhand desk to one that didn't wobble. Tiny changes, but they added up. Each email, each payment, each finished project stacked quietly inside me like bricks. Still, the silence from my family stretched on. They didn't ask what I was doing, and I didn't tell them. But late at night, between deadlines, I'd open the saved photo of that piece of land, the creek, the trees, the sense of space, and imagine a place that was mine. Not to run from them, but to build something separate. The thought of it steadied me. Outside rain tapped the window, steady as a metronome, marking the rhythm of a new life taking shape. 2 years after that dinner, a cool autumn wind whipped through the fir trees as I stood on 5 acres of land boots sinking into damp soil. Behind me, the cabin smelled of cedar and paint, a mix of sweat and stubbornness. Solar panels caught the weak sun, glinting like small shields. I had built this place with my own hands and with Sarah's help on weekends, piece by piece, no shortcuts. We had bought the land, quietly drawn up legal papers to protect each share, and then worked nights and weekends clearing brush, hauling trash, sketching plans. I posted one photo online, just the cabin framed by trees, captioned simply, "Built this." Proud of it. I didn't tag a location. It was my quiet victory, no press release. My phone stayed silent from home, but one Saturday in October, a car slowed at the end of the drive. Tires crunched gravel. Through the window, I saw my brother step out, hoodie pulled up against the wind, phone pressed to his ear. He walked up the overgrown path, eyes fixed on the cabin. From the porch, I heard him yell into the phone, "Dad, you need to see this right now." I wiped my hands on a rag and stepped outside. "Hey, Tyler," I said. My voice was calm, even friendly. "What the hell is this?" "Denise." His eyes darted between the panels, the porch, the stack of firewood. I gestured to the cabin. "Mine. You built this, how you were broke, living in that shoebox, eating ramen." "That was 2 years ago," I replied. His face flickered between disbelief and something else, a shadow of guilt, maybe, but he didn't speak. The wind hissed through the trees like a crowd waiting for a punchline. In the distance, I heard another engine approaching, a deeper rumble, steady and slow. 30 minutes later, a truck pulled up, tires grinding the gravel into dust. My parents stepped out, my mother clutching her purse, my father's face unreadable. They moved slowly toward the cabin, scanning the trees, the clearing, the panels. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my father's voice came low, almost cautious. "Denise, what is this? My property. My cabin," I said, wiping a streak of sawdust from my arm. He glanced at the solar panels. "You built this with what money saved it. Earned it. Did the work myself." He stopped a few feet from the porch. "We thought you were struggling." "I wasn't struggling," I answered quietly. "I was working. Building something without you." My mother's lips parted, but the words didn't form. Tyler hovered behind them, eyes darting from me to the cabin. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of cedar and earth. Sarah stepped out, then brushing paint off her fingers, and gave a small nod to me before slipping back inside. No speeches, no performance, just presence. I could feel their gaze moving over every board and window like they were recalibrating who I was. My father's expression shifted, first pride, mingled with regret. "We gave Tyler $150K, and he bought a house that looks like every other house," he murmured, almost to himself. "You built this for less than half." I said nothing. The silence stretched, full and heavy. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small in their presence. I stood on my own porch, the wind against my face, and let them see exactly what they'd overlooked. My parents stepped inside at my nod, their footsteps soft on the unfinished floor. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, lighting up the grain of the wood. They walked slowly, almost reverently, touching the counters, the beams, the little details Sarah and I had labored over. There were no questions about cost now, only the quiet weight of realization. Tyler stayed near the door, hands shoved deep into his pockets, watching them take it in. "This is beautiful," my mother whispered, finally, voice small. I didn't answer. I let the silence speak. My father's eyes moved from the solar inverter to the loft stairs and back to me. "You did all this with help," I said. "But yes, no handouts. Just work." He nodded slowly, looking at the view out the window. "I was wrong about you," he said, and there was no drama in his tone, just a flat truth. I didn't rush to fill the space. I wanted them to feel it the same way I had felt their absence all those years. My mother blinked hard, as if holding back tears. Tyler shifted the floor, creaking under his shoes. "I need to think about whether I want you back in my life," I said at last, my voice low but steady. "If I do, it's going to be different. Boundaries, respect, no more comparisons." My father looked at me, really looked, and for once didn't argue. "That's fair," he said. My mother opened her mouth, closed it again, and stared at the floor. The room held a quiet that wasn't empty, but full of everything unsaid, of years of imbalance, tilting just a little toward center. I could feel Sarah's presence just outside, waiting, giving me space. I took one last look at my parents, standing in the cabin they'd never believed I could build. When they stepped back outside, the evening light had softened into gold, filtering through the trees and throwing long shadows across the porch. I followed them out, but stayed on the top step, leaning against the rail. Sarah slipped her hand into mine, her fingers warm and sure. She didn't say anything, just gave a small squeeze. Tyler lingered a few feet away, eyes on the ground. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for not seeing you sooner, for not asking." I nodded once. "Thanks." It was all I had for now, but it was real. My parents stood by their truck, unsure if they should leave or stay. They looked smaller somehow against the backdrop of the tall firs. My father cleared his throat, but no words came. My mother glanced up at me, eyes shining with something I couldn't quite name. I didn't invite them back in. I didn't make promises. I simply stood there, the cabin behind me, the life I had built around me, a silent statement stronger than any speech. "Take care of yourselves," I said at last. My voice was calm, not cold. They nodded, got into the truck, and drove away slowly down the gravel road, dust rising in their wake. Sarah and I stayed on the porch watching until the sound of the engine faded. The air smelled like pine and fresh wood shavings. My heart was steady. Tired, relieved, proud, all at once. This place, this moment was mine. Not just the cabin, but the boundaries, the quiet strength, the proof that I had not been the failure they once named me. Maybe someday I'd let them back in. Maybe we'd find a way to be a real family. But tonight I just sat with Sarah watching the last light fade through the trees and breathed in the life I'd built. The truck's dust settled long after the sound was gone, leaving the porch wrapped in a quiet that felt almost sacred. Denise didn't raise her voice, didn't slam any doors, she simply stood there steady. In that stillness was the lesson: sometimes the most powerful way to prove your worth is to build it, live it, and let others witness in silence.